Okay, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you are. Today is January 13th, so lucky 13 for us to start our SIG CLI calls. We have agenda packed, so let me start with the announcements. 121 release dates are up. As the announcement said, these are not the final dates, but I'm expecting that they will be close to this. So February 9th is the enhancement freeze, which basically means we have less than a month to merge any Kubernetes enhancements proposals that we want to land for 121. And the code freeze for 121 will be on March 9th. So that's about 2 months, less than 2 months from today. There is an ask from the production readiness team. All the caps need to be migrated to the new template. There was an email, I think that was earlier this week or last week, that they are asking basically for help. As one of the requirements, they have automation around the production readiness, which is part of the new template. And they are asking and reaching out to all the SIGs to help with the migration. So if you authored a cap in the past, if you can update your cap and then reach out to me, Phil, Eddie, or Sean for approvals, we can help you get those merged, and we will help the production readiness review team with their tooling. Eddie, Phil, Sean, is there anything else you wanted to add?
No.
Okay, cool.
A quick question. To be clear, that's only for PRs, caps that have not already merged. Is that right?
This is for all the caps, even the ones that you did merge in the past. So the ones, I can't remember when exactly the new template for the cap happened. I'd like to say that was somewhere in December. So if you were authoring a cap in the past, a month up to 2, I would say that there's good chance that you already have the new template. Although I remember that John mentioned that there was some slight changes over the Christmas, the holiday shutdown. So it's possible that there are some missing bits. So the ask is basically for all the caps. If I remember correctly, Wojtek pasted me a link that I'll add to the agenda pointing to the migration effort that he was doing in the past.
There's only caps that are active, right? Like if the thing's been released already and there's no activity, or if you've decided not to move forward with it, then do we need to migrate it?
I'm not 100% sure about that one, but I can double check. But it looks like this is for all caps. So it might be also for all the ones that were written in the past. But I'll figure out with Wojtek, and I'll double confirm.
All right, yeah, that sounds great. It'd be good to know what happens if we don't migrate a cap, because it just doesn't show up in release notes or something, and it's something we've already released.
The production readiness review is currently a required element for 121. So they are using the tooling based off the new template for merging them. So it's possible that the tooling will be just falling on the old caps. So as long as these are old caps that you're not planning to work on in the current near future, then probably migrating is a less priority. And if it's something that you're currently working on with a target release, current or one of the future ones, then probably it will be something that we will have to work on.
Yeah, I'm assuming that if something's already in production and has been for years, a production readiness review is not required.
Yeah, probably so. Okay. I've noticed a couple new names in the participants list, so I'll give folks chance to speak up. If you're new to this call, feel free to introduce yourself, say who you are, what you're looking for in the SIG CLI meetings, and what you're interested in.
Hi, my name is Hao Yu. I'm working for Red Hat right now. Joint effort, I'm on the Red Hat, and I've been on last week's bug call, and to this call I'm new. So I have a CAP, and the PR submitted the list regarding a minor change. Ignore kube control drain, ignore daemon sets. So that's what I'm looking for. Thank you.
Yeah, welcome. Is there anyone new that want to introduce themselves?
Hi, I'm Anirudh, and this is basically my first time on the call, and my passion is working on Kubernetes and getting things deployed. So getting CLI up to the mark. I'm working for a company that actually uses a CLI similar to how Kubernetes managed, and I'm looking forward to learn more about how things work here and maybe perhaps contribute.
Yeah, welcome, Anirudh.
My name is Francisco. I work for an insurance company in Germany, and we're using another tool other than Kubernetes, but we're migrating to Kubernetes, and I'm very interested in starting contributing to Kubernetes. Perhaps starting with the command line interface, because I think I have some good ideas. Maybe after learning how things work a little bit better, I can contribute a bit.
Awesome. Welcome, Francisco.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jailton from IBM Brazil, and I'm trying to figure out how to contribute with CLI.
Awesome. That's a perfect meeting to be on. Welcome, Jonathan.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Nick. That's my handle. My name is Nick Malawaki. I work for Microsoft. I came here to ensure that a PR/bug was pushed through, and that was why I'm here.
Okay, welcome.
I did have one question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I understand how things graduate in the KEP process for components that are not kubectl. Does kubectl have feature flags that move it through alpha beta stable?
So what we usually do is for commands, we have an alpha subcommand where we put all the alpha grade commands. And then upon reaching beta or stable, we only put information in the description of the command.
So
that's how it works.
What about changes to existing commands?
It depends. If you want to deprecate some flags, it's a matter of putting a warning, and we follow the usual Kubernetes API guidelines for how long this kind of deprecation has to be out there, and only after that we will be removing flags. If you are changing flags, there is actually one topic that will be going through, because we want to change a default flag. That's something that we hasn't done yet. We did change a flag from a simple Boolean to a more complicated. But what we did in the past is, if you're using server side, for example, it used to be a bool flag true false only. Currently, there are 3 possible values. So we parse both the new flag and the old one for a transition period, and we put a warning that this is the change, and you should be using this instead of the true false value for this flag. So that's how we usually do all of the changes. It's the graduation process is pretty much similar to any other Kubernetes API. It is just through warnings that we inform users when this starts, and the timelines are identified.
Users configure the CLI through flags anyway. Like, there's really no need to have like a flag to enable a flag.
Exactly.
So it's a little bit different.
So the only question I would be curious as, and then I'll get off, is what happens if you're changing behavior of an existing flag? And then I essentially want to know if one of my PR or issues needs a cap.
That's something that we'll be actually discussing a little bit later today.
Okay.
There's a topic of changing the default flag. If you go through the topics, that's 1, 2, 3, 4th topic on the agenda. So I'll hold on with answering that particular question, because that's usually per case basis. Okay, is there anyone other new? Yeah, go ahead.
My name is Kingdon. I am an application developer at University of Notre Dame this week, but next week I'm joining Weaveworks, and so I'll be having a lot more time for things like SIGs, and this is my first SIG meeting. I was invited by Eddie. We talked a little while ago. He's a friend of mine from a long time. So
yeah, welcome, Kingdom.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that's pretty much all. So we can, yeah, wow, go ahead.
Hi everyone. I didn't work for anyone. I'm still a student, so I'm just currently learning Kubernetes. I have submit a couple of just Golang PR just to understand the code base, and I talked to Ricardo. He's very helpful in helping me doing the good first issue. So thank you for helping me on that.
Okay, welcome, Lau. Anyone else that I missed? Okay, looks like not. So we can jump over to the main topics. The first one is from Natasha about open API features in Kustomize. Take it away from here, Natasha.
Yeah, so as a recap, at the last meeting, I had some slides that described a proposal for Kustomize, adding an open API field to the customization file to allow users to specify their own open API schema. And this would support strategic merging for custom resources. I took all of that information and put it in a cap. I'm not sure if you want me to go through it again because it's all the same information, but I would like to get this reviewed so I can move forward.
Sounds great. We were just discussing before this meeting that we're going to need to have like a better system for like queuing up this sort of work, so that you don't have to wait until this meeting to get like a review, and that this meeting would be more of an escalation if there was like contentious things that weren't getting resolved on the PR itself. So thanks for bringing it here. Who's the, like, I could give this a shot. Is there where the most get on this review?
So I tagged you and Jeff. I'm not sure if there's someone else I should tag, but if you could take a look, that would be great.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I'm already familiar with it, and I'm fine. The cap is actually pretty short. It's just the boilerplate that makes it look bigger than it actually is. But it's all about reproducible builds. You know, putting an open API spec right in the customization file, as opposed to like using an environment variable or something, so that you can load a new, a different version of a spec, or load, a subset of a spec that just includes custom resources.
Awesome. I'll make sure to give this a review by end of day.
Okay, awesome.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks, Eddie. Yeah, that's all from me.
You're muted, Mache.
Yeah, I muted myself. Sorry. Ricardo, you're up next. I didn't want to interrupt Natasha.
Okay, so I'm gonna be really quick. I'm doing some low hanging fruits reviews into PRs, trying to reduce our queue for the extra small and the small PRs that I am able to review. And I've been seeing in the past days a lot of cleanups, PRs, actually most of them with the internalization on kubectl long usage and so on. So I was reviewing this one, and then Antonio asked about if there is a place, because there was an issue tracking all of those into kubectl repo. I think Eddie was taking control of that one, but then that issue is closed. So if there is something like tracking the documenting this and tracking this and seeing if something breaks, and honestly I don't know if there is what's the process that's being followed here. So I propose to bring this, and because Antonio asked if someone is going to plan this effort, but he suggested us to do something like include proper process for that and documentation of those stuffs, and the past PRs, they were something like, okay, that's a good first issue for someone who wants to take care of that. So I don't know how's the process this one.
Yeah, thank you for bringing this up. So that issue came up from a while ago when Brian and I were in some code base, and we realized that a lot of stuff wasn't using the I18N wrappers. So we kind of just opened that to track it, and then I completely forgot and didn't follow up on it. Is this something that you want to take ownership of, Ricardo? Because it does need an owner to get over the finish line for sure.
I can step forward, yes. I am with low bandwidth with that, but I can step forward for sure, Eddie. So I can ping you on Slack and ask what do you expect, if that's only replacing the descriptions for the internalization function, or if there's something more that I need to take care when users are when the contributors are changing something, need to take care of documentations or tests, or just replacing the internalization strings that it's enough. But I can take care of that, yeah.
A good starting point is something what we did in the past is create some kind of an Uber issue where all the PRs related to internationalization are linked to. That is more or less tracking the progress of where we are. And then if anyone asks, then, for example, Ricardo, if you're interested, you could go through them, provide the initial reviews, and then reach out to Eddie, myself, Phil, or Sean, and we can do a bulk approval for the PRs that you went through and you're okay with. I think that's basically what Sean was also mentioning. Phil was mentioning earlier with regards to owning some piece of functionality that you're trying to push forward. If you're interested in driving that effort, I think it will be pretty cool.
Yeah, sure. I can do that. As I'm just going to not to keep us stuck in this meeting. Probably bother you folks in Slack to see what we expect of this issue. But sounds good to me.
Okay,
Thank
cool.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks a ton, Ricardo.
Okay. Yanni, you brought a topic for customized plugins. Do we have Yanni on the call?
So this is on the future topics too, that we definitely need to have a conversation around the graduation criteria. We've been putting it off for a couple weeks now.
Okay, we can probably leave that one then for the next time, given that we have still a bunch of topics to push forward. Okay. Cool. How, since you're here and you brought up this topic to me, you want to talk about changing the default flag for drain command?
Yeah, so you captured it really well. I think the Eddie also did a run on this, and by default, the kube drain ignore daemon set is very in order to move forward. Most people establish, for example, in Red Hat, people I encountered who pitched me this thought is nobody ever used kube drain in production without setting ignore daemon set. You want to do something meaningful, if you know what you're doing and you want to do meaningful, you would definitely need to include that. So why don't we change to true and save people this hassle to type those 16 or 20 characters? So that's the sum. So the change is really simple, and the documentation is also easy to change. I think it's all automatically generated. So there's 2 lines total change in the code. So the cap is trying to argue this. This is indeed a most frequent case, and it's really has no value to not use the ignore daemon set in the command.
So I agree overall with the change because I don't remember invoking a single drain without specifying the ignore daemon sets to true. And I see that Eddie and others are saying the exact same thing. The problem with that is we would be changing a default, and that's problematic. I'm not 100% sure how we would best approach this, whether we would be currently, we need to figure out a way, because with all the changes that we did in the past, it was usually we were either deprecating or adding flags, which is not a problem, or we were entirely changing how a flag is being passed, but we were still able to maintain the previous behavior. Here we are actually changing the behavior 180 degrees. So the thing is, one possible approach would be to put a warning that we are going to change the default for this flag in the upcoming release, and have that warning for the usual period of time, which is a year or 4 releases, whichever is longer. And only then we would be able to do the change. I'm not sure. Eventually, we could probably send out emails to KubeDev asking for people for feedback. Not sure what others think about this.
But this ties back to what we talked about last week with Brian's idea about a version skew warning. I think we talked about. So Jordan actually implemented this at some point, right? There's actually a version skew
for APIs
feature that came out. Not version skew, but a warning feature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the API warning is for deprecated API. So I think that's a separate. The version skew warning is something that we talked about several times. And I'm pretty sure that all of us are in agreement that yes, we want to have it done. I might be guilty of not reviewing the PR in time, but that's definitely something that we want to have. This though is actually, the warning itself is not any different from a deprecation warning that we have a bunch across any of the kubectl commands. If you, for example, look at the kubectl run command, when we remove the majority of the functionality, there are still a handful of flags that are currently deprecated. And if you try to pass them, you'll just get a warning that the flag is not anymore applicable. One such example is -- schedule. It just doesn't make sense in the current kubectl run command. The problem is this is not deprecating a flag. This is changing its default behavior. And the question is whether having such warning for the next year will be sufficient for people to digest that, yes, this is a change that we are planning.
Shouldn't we maybe deprecate this flag? And then if you really need it, create a brand new flag that is the opposite. I think it plays better with the process, no?
I have a question. Also, so I'm trying to think through the possible negative effects of letting this skirt the process. And I understand the process. But I'm trying to imagine a scenario where you would want this flag to be set to false, because it sounds like nobody on the call at least has that. So maybe I'm just trying to contribute something here.
Yeah, so I actually write up a little case. So the worst case is there's some production team already have scripted something with the default behavior. And that only those pieces of scripts going to be deeply affected by this reversal, right? All the others is interactive, actually don't got harmed. Only the first user who has never used this string, you actually want to get an error without doing anything. But if you are to read the menu, you know you are going to affect it, you won't get hurt. So this only harmful is somebody scripted the defaults without specifying ignore the daemon set, which is going to fail out, but may not, right? So that's the only true negative effects.
Yeah, the script is something that I'm most worried about, because that's usually the place that nobody will look into. And suddenly when they upgrade in between, they will notice that the flag is not there, or there's a different behavior. So I'm not worried about people who are actually working with kubectl on a daily basis interactively, because they will notice the message. It's the scripts that are somewhere in the data centers running for you, and you, as long as they're working, you will not see a difference.
I don't know if this sometime came to the SIG. I don't know if also this is something that we want, but couldn't we start for the future, like when those things happens, to propose something like a config file as a user preference? Like I want, every time that I do some kubectl, I want to ignore daemon set, but this only happens in my machine. So this is like a config of mine. Even on kubeconfig or like kubectl or something like that.
There is a topic from Doug about having a global kubeconfig, and we will be touching on that one a little bit later.
There are lots of places where kubectl is awfully verbose, and I think most people have bash aliases or ZSH aliases for their common cases. So I would personally err on the side of just documenting and suggesting if you're really doing drains with ignore daemon set, make an alias. Seems like a safer and more, just more in line with the way kubectl is generally used in practice.
The problem I have with that is it's hard for new people to do the right thing.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. I'm trying to figure out the right balance here. Yeah.
Honestly, I think we should definitely bring this up to SIG architecture, because I imagine as kube control gets older, we're going to have to figure out how to deprecate default flags or change their behavior eventually.
And I think there's a couple areas where we had to do similar stuff. And I think we've it's been have a warning, like we keep the behavior to standard error. And then I think it might be like fail the command or something like that. If there's different ways we've done it. Like one is like, if we're removing functionality, it's like fail the command, but still like do the right thing or something. So scripts start like noticing that there's an issue there. But always, I mean, we could, at least at a minimum, if there's like if we discovered that like there's some way that the default behavior of the command is not a preferred usage, then we can always log a message to standard error and tell people to change how they're using it.
Okay, so we still have a little bit of time. I'm leaning towards what Eddie proposed, as in, let's bring it up for SIG architecture and kubedev. So how can you write an email to kubedev and SIG architecture describing the situation and asking for feedback that we are considering changing the default, or if there will be no objections to deprecate that one instead and entirely remove. If we don't hear any objections, we can start the deprecation process. If there will be objections over the next year, we can always change from deprecating to actually changing the default value at the time. And if there will be no objections within a year, the flag is gone and we don't have a problem.
Yeah, email, I will CC you and.
I mean, write an email to SIG architecture mailing list and Kubernetes dev.
Okay.
This has sufficient exposure to the SIG architecture and most of the devs that are working with Kubernetes on a daily basis.
Okay. So the option I propose is with this set to true or deprecating this
yes.
option. Okay.
Yes. Basically, either will be fine. We'll go that way.
Yeah, then cool.
Cool.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Thanks
sure.
a lot, Hal, for bringing this one. Brian, disco warning.
Yeah, this is something that came up in the bug scrub last week, and a long time ago, I started working on this PR that would always display a skew warning if it was out of skew. It was pretty intrusive. The goal being to let people know that they're using an unsupported SKU of the client and server versions. I'm not sure. You know, we talked about sending something out to the community and getting feedback about the warning, but you know, I guess I'm not sure about that. But what came up on last week's call was, you know, maybe what we need is just when you do a kubectl version, to show the warning. That might maybe a good first step is let's show the warning there when you see the client server version. We can have a warning that says, hey, by the way, your client and server version is out of SKU, and that will help when we're getting issues reported. When people do kubectl version to report the issue, they'll know that they have a SKU version problem. Without us, it seems like over and over we're having to tell people, hey, your version is out of the supported SKU. So I guess two things. Wanted to get feedback on the group of whether that's a good first step to simply show the warning when we do a kubectl version, and furthermore, do we really want to try to make it something that happens every time you do a command? Is that just too much?
Definitely the kubectl version warning is a good first step. I'm still inclined to have the general warning, because oftentimes I think people will be interacting with them without even noticing that this SKU is that different. And not sure how many people are actually invoking the version command.
I agree. I guess that maybe being annoying and printing a lot of those messages will make the users update their kubectl command instead of relying only into the version. I see a lot of issues in SIG network and other ones, and like the version SKU is huge, and probably it's someone that just received the cluster to make administration and even don't know that there is a kubectl version command. So, and maybe having a user preference that allow, again, the user to ignore like warnings.
Right. Having it would have to be a painful. If I remember correctly, currently you can pass an option to require a hard version match, so that if you have a SKU, it won't work at all. We won't be going as far, but we will be going up to the point where you are reminded, but we don't break you.
I put in the chat, I think we're going to see complaints the opposite direction more, where people are using an older cluster and a newer kube control from their package manager. And that's where we're going to get a ton more complaints. Because most people are still on older versions of the server.
Yeah, but the question is whether the warning was only, in which direction is the warning? If we do the warning so that kubectl can be newer than the server, also don't forget that at some point in time when kubectl will be in a separate repo, the SKU will be always, I'm inclined to say, yeah, this is the minimal version, and we don't have any particular for mux.
We want the warning. We're going to do the warning. And it's valuable to do it in both directions, because there are times where, like, kubecontrol stops using an API that's been deprecated and moves on to a different API, right? And doesn't check that the old one exists. You could imagine server-side apply at some point. The intent would be to just use that API and remove the code that does the client-side apply. The warning message seems like in the version command, it seems like a no-brainer. Like, I don't see any reason not to do that. In the other commands, it seems like, if we're writing it to standard error, it seems inappropriate information to give the users. exiting non-zero is probably like something that needs to be discussed more. Like there's trade-offs there. I totally get the arguments for it, but like it also breaks something that doesn't break today and will break some users. So that one requires more discussion.
Okay, so let's proceed with just the version command, and we can probably ask for something more in the long run.
That sounds good. I'll update the PR and or submit a new PR with just the version command, and then we can either create a new issue or update the issue to track the overall warning.
Sounds great.
Right.
Thanks, Brian. Doug, your topic.
Hello, everyone. So the first one is actually the two topics I have here is about review. So it's asking people to take a few minutes of the day and take a look in the two PRs. They contain enhancements. So the first one is about to have a generic notation for the kube control, exec, log, and attach. So a single notation for all the commands. So you can select the pod. Let's say you have a container. You have a pod of side containers. So you want to select one when you do kube control logs or kube control attach. So have a single notation for all commands. For me, it looks good. It works, but but I'd like to have more people reviewing and the approvers as well.
I owe you reviews in both. I remember that I was behind at least the default container annotation because we did something similar on the OpenShift side, or at least in the logs command. And I remember that I suggested to have this one generic.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to go through cap reviews sometime next week. It's pretty hard for me to do any more work this week than I already have planned. But I think next week is feasible. I'll ping you on Slack as soon as I'll be done with those, and we can. I'm as long for the default container, I'll take the ownership on that one, and I'm not sure if anyone else is interested, but we can you can have a look and leave your feedback. But I would really like to see other people check out the general configuration changes for from Doug. Doug, can you bring the topic of the configuration to the SIG CLI mailing list, or maybe even all the way up to Kubernetes Dev, so that more people will have a look at it?
Sure. I think I split from the next capt that I'm going to say. I think we need to create a capt for that, in my opinion, at least, right? So the next one is migrate the home.kube directory to the one that is under .config, which most of the applications are using these days. And we had some people from Red Hat and also Jordan reviewing this one, doing some comments like, okay, guys, we're going to replace the new directory, but what happens with the tools that are using it? Is going to break. Why don't we just say to the customers, I'm sorry, to the users, like use kubeconfig environment variable, So I added all these points into the capt so the people can see my points of view. And also I added a patch to show this movement. So if you guys can take a look, it would be nice.
Yeah, the kubeconfig move will be a bigger one, and it will be something that, honestly, my guess is that we will be maintaining backwards compatibility for an extended period of time, a lot more than the default deprecation timeframes are, because it's not only us, but like you said, there are other tools that rely on that on the file. Obviously, it is possible to have a link in place that will solve the situation, and probably somewhere along the line we will have to have such a link so that the transition is smooth to a lot of people and we support both locations at the same time. But yeah, I'm pretty confident that this needs a broader exposure to the entire community. So like I said, I would definitely encourage you to send an email to kubedev and SIG CLI asking for feedback, broad feedback.
All right.
I don't want to rush with this one because that's a big change.
Yeah.
But we can start laying the grounds for this, gather the feedback, and slowly prepare ourselves for how to go.
All right. So that's everything I have in my pocket. So thank you.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Douglas, for bringing that one up. Okay, we are about 7 minutes to the top of the hour. Let's move on to the stand-ups. I see Koi. Nick, you want to talk about it?
Sure, yeah. Keep it awfully short and sweet here. We're doing some stuff to ready for the upcoming, pretty soon, hopefully, repo transition. Right now, we're still under the IBM GitHub org. We're hoping to transfer that over pretty soon. We're just checking all the boxes at this point. So in preparation also, we've done some polishing to the code base. We'll be updating the README. If you guys have any suggestions about how we can reorient the README to be more sort of broad, all ears, open up issues. One of the things we've also done is we've done some cleanup just in the way that we're talking to the API server. Up until now, we've been basically invoking the CLI for every command. So you type CUI command, it just invokes the kubectl CLI, which adds to quite a bit of overhead. So we've updated that to talk to the API server directly, at least for some common cases. So previously it would have been taking me 400, 500 milliseconds for some pretty common operations. And now they're down to maybe 80 milliseconds, which is actually faster than using kubectl CLI directly. So for most of the common cases of viewing tables, drilling down to the details of a resource, they're about 2 to 3 times faster than previously, and also about roughly that same magnitude faster than using kubectl, the CLI. So that'll all go into the next release. There's a bunch more stuff, but that's sort of the highlights. That's all I got.
Okay, cool. Thanks a lot, Nick. That are good news coming from the Koya camp. Jeff, you're still on the call. Do you have any updates on the preparation customized for being revendored into kubectl? I remember there's a person on Slack that was pinging me. He's interested in bumping customize in the main Kubernetes, main kubectl repo.
Yeah, we're at that stage in the project when like 95% of it is done, but the last 5% are the nitty-gritty bugs. We've got something like 300 unit tests and almost 200 end-to-end tests that are covering all the behavior. But as we make the final changes, we are triggering failures of some of the tests. So I'm going in and fixing them. I'm aware of the February 9th deadline. And I don't know if we're going to need a enhancement proposal for this, because arguably it's just changing the libraries that kubectl is linked to. But I'm also aware of the code freeze that's coming up in March. So I think those are doable. We're working really hard on it. Brian, if you're interested in helping with some things, please go ahead and reach out to me, because there's one bug in particular that I think you'd be able to contribute to. I can't remember the name of it, the number of it off the top of my head, but it's something about, yeah. Anyway, you can reach out to me in Slack. Yeah, we're very close, closer than we've ever been, but it's always these last little bugs that we're trying to squash. Because right now, Kustomize uses both API machinery libraries and all the new KVM libraries. All of the tests have to pass through both sides of that. And maintaining that is kind of tricky. So I'm optimistic about hitting this code freeze.
I'm not 100% sure that we need a cap for this one. There's a bunch of issues that basically people are asking, and I've seen numerous comments where people
that would help,
are
great. Not having to do that would be nice.
They are basically saying that they stopped using the embedded customized because of the old version, and since they are used to using customized, the standalone, I'm not sure if that would be a problem if we don't hit the enhancement freeze date. So I think for the bump, the code freeze date, so March 9th, is relevant.
So I can get the PR together, because that PR is independent of all these little bug fixes. I can get the PR together and sent out, so that can be discussed.
Okay, cool. Thanks
Yep.
a lot, Jeff.
I'll bring that up at the next meeting.
I see Ahmed on the call. Ahmed, do you want to give a short update on the crew?
Hello, everyone. So, 1 second. Yeah, so I'm Ahmed. I'm a software engineer at LeaseWeb. Yeah, I'm just, trying to join nowadays, Kubernetes, and yeah, somehow I'm trying to help with mostly issues. Maybe in the future I will be able to create a PR.
Okay, thanks a lot, Ahmed, for introducing. I took you for someone else. Chris corrected me, and he said that there's no crew update on this week. Okay, we're 1 minute left. I think that's pretty much all, folks. Thank you very much for the past hour. It was, as usual, wonderful time talking with you all, and see you in 2 weeks. Bye, all.
Bye. Thank you.